Here we go. Tech Chat number 34. I'm Dan, your host. So, got quite a few things I want to cover today, and this is going to be a subject I can cover like really in depth if I choose to. And we'll see how far I go with it today. Before I get to it, I have a new website, and we're working on it. My webmaster, good friend, we've run into a couple of hiccups, and he happens to do this job for a living. So he's busy. He's helping me with this, get this website set up in a way where I can then set it up. He's going to do his stuff before I can do my stuff. So we're kind of slow on it, but it's up there, and that website is spiritualanarchist93.com. Again, that's spiritualanarchist93.com. I'm also on Odyssey at Spiritual Archist Dan Arnold. Rumble, Spiritual Anarchist Dan Arnold. I'm back on YouTube. We'll see how long that lasts. Slightly changed name, Spiritual Anarchist Daniel Arnold. You'll find me on YouTube. So, with that being said, me and this guy are really good friends. We've had what I would consider to be a good friendship that's consciously transactional, as in free association, and I've done stuff for him, he does stuff for me, like a true anarchist society would be. So we're going to talk about anarchy a little bit today, but before I get into that, I want to tell a story. And this story, before I even get into it, I don't like hyphenating gender traits with the word toxic. And I wrote this in my book. You're either toxic or you're masculine. You're either toxic or you're feminine. There's nothing toxic about normal feminine and masculine traits. That's them playing with words, okay, to mind control you. So I could call this toxic femininity, but I'm not going to. So this story doesn't involve me. It involves one of my students, one of only 3 people I've ever promoted to black belt. And, give a little background. I'm not going to say no names. I just thought it was a very interesting take, a reversal on how sometimes passive aggression and manipulation and gaslighting are the tools of narcissistic sociopaths. Everybody wants to be the good guy. So they do all these things to get you angry, and God forbid if you raise your voice as a man and have any emotions and get angry, you're the bad guy. And people seek to do this with each other all the time. They want to manipulate you into the position where you do get angry, and probably righteously angry in most cases. Now, if you're somebody who's always constantly getting angry at every little thing, it means nothing. But if your natural state is not one of anger, and then all of a sudden you are angry with a transaction with a person or with a government or with an entity, there's a reason why. They seek to manipulate you into getting angry, because whoever raises their voice is bad. Whoever gets mad is wrong. And they want to look like the good guy. And this is what narcissistic sociopathic predators do. Okay, on the large international scale and in a personal scale. So this is a female who's doing this to my student, and he wants to break up with her, and they're adults, they're in their 30s, and she's give a little background on her. She's total left wing, like she's completely for slavery. If you raise your voice or even say the word firearm, you're toxically masculine to her. But to get straight to the point, she assaulted him. She started hitting him, and he restrained her. He held her until she calmed down. Now, before any feminazis jump up and say, oh, he was restricting her movement, it was kidnapping. No, he was defending himself without hurting her. And so the question becomes, is under natural law, she hit him, she assaulted him several times before he held on to her and stopped the assault. Under natural law, would he have been justified in hitting her back? Well, of course. He would have been justified in, hitting her back. The street guy in me says smack the shit out of her, right? But that's neither here nor there. sometimes I think natural law is a little more nuanced than that. Okay, and I'll explain. If a man on the street all of a sudden attacks you, a stranger, you don't know what their intent is, you don't know what their skill ability is, you probably should use the maximum amount of force until that threat is no longer a threat. So that person is no longer a threat to you. If they initiate violence towards you, you're allowed to do whatever you need to do to defend yourself. In this case, he would have been justified, this student of mine, in hitting her back. If you get attacked by somebody who you do know has a high level of skill, you definitely better use the most amount of force necessary to defend yourself. But in this case, he knew the threat. He knew the threat, her ability level. So in this case, I think natural law is a little more nuanced. I don't think creation would have looked at him favorably for punching her teeth out. Okay. With that being said, she was wrong. And this is a case of, she threatened him. Okay, she threatened him. She got him financially dependent on her, and then she started to threaten him when he wanted to leave her about something. It's kind of like what socialists do. Not to be throwing names around, but they want to make you dependent upon them. Just as above, so below, right? The universe is fractal, so is the world. This is happening on a personal level in her life, his life. And with this being said, I really want to say she's been the victim of past relationships, past men who've been abusive. She's deserving of all the healing and love as a human being that she could possibly get, and I hope she gets it. But she's doing what a lot of people do, and they bring their gunk and junk from past relationships and project them onto a current relationship. Okay. And in this case, I just thought that it was a perfect example of how women, especially feminazi type of women, can be real contradicting. You raise your voice, you are all of a sudden this toxic masculine person, but then once they can't win an argument or something, and he didn't want to argue anymore, so she started hitting him. There's no call to initiate violence towards somebody. With that said, and she's a big girl. She's 5'10", 180 pounds. She's not some small girl, but he's like 6'1", 250 pounds, and a black belt. So with these known circumstances, I believe he did the right thing. I don't think creation would have looked. He knew what the threat wasn't. He restrained her, okay? So he used the amount of force that was proportionate to the known threat. But when there's an unknown threat, or that's a threat that's vaguely known, and it could be anything from, you being manipulated into doing something you don't want to do, having violence put upon your body, having something put in your body you don't want, being coerced at the threat of violence, with the weaponization of shame and everything else that goes on, you have a right to defend yourself. But like what he did, how you defend yourself, when you defend yourself, and how much force you defend yourself with is going to be a judgment call based on the totality of the circumstances. So in these circumstances, I believe he did the right thing. Now, with that being said, I want to move on. I'd be interested to hear what anyone else thinks about that. Absolutely would love to hear what anyone else thinks about that. Because at the end of the day, what we're going to be dealing with in the future is mind-controlled people who have been socially engineered to think they're all the good guys. Everyone wants to think they're the good guys, okay? And you got to make a decision and decide when you want to use force and when you don't want to use force to defend yourself against someone else's violence or aggression. And when is it worth making that stand? And how people should come together and start being willing to make that stand and use force if necessary. The appropriate amount of force to the appropriate, to the threat being leveled at you. And I think humanity is facing a threat right now of complete slavery and enslavement. But again, they do it in this slow way, so if anything's done, they look like the good guys. Everybody wants to be the good guy. So there's a lot of finer nuances to this psyop and everything that's going on in the world. And this is just the lower level of it. Again, social engineering had her thinking it's okay for her to hit him and initiate violence towards him. It doesn't go both ways. And ladies who are narcissistic sociopaths, you can't do nothing to me. You have nothing over me. Okay? You ain't fooling me. You're not fooling a lot of us. And more importantly, you woke girls are not fooling awakened women, okay? That's your kryptonite, awakened women. You're not fooling them. And that's even more important, or just as important. They're not fooled by you, and they'll shut you down. And these are awakened women who have positive influences on their men, okay? So anyways, with that said, I'm blessed to know several of them. With that said, I want to move on to something else that's very near and dear to me, and that is, the word anarchism. It's being grossly misunderstood continually, and this might be the low-hanging fruit in the bigger picture of what's going on in the world. We have to understand that people are going to use words in the colloquial sense, which means common. Commonly understood is what the colloquial sense of something is. So it's commonly understood that anarchism means, chaos and violence and all this other stuff, where it's the exact opposite. That's what the state does, okay? So again, an comes from the Greek prefix meaning without. Archon comes from the Greek noun meaning masters, rulers, the archons, okay? And archon, anarchy, means no rulers, no subjects, no masters, no slaves. It has nothing to do with violence. Not one rioter in the last several years has been an anarchist. Anarchists do not want government. They don't want to be ruled. They don't want rulers. Just like monarchy, mono meaning one, archon, one ruler. Anarchy means no rulers. It doesn't mean no chaos. Anarchists believe in the non-aggression principle, the self-defense principle, which needs to be activated at times in proportion to the threat. So the example I'm giving now, of course, is that lower proportion, but there is obviously a much higher proportion, okay? And, people are going to probably have to get together and help each other out. Have some real-life conferences and meetings, some real-life planning, because things are going pretty crazy in the world, man. Again, I'm by no means am I going to live my life in fear, be doom and gloom about it, but I just wanted to tell that little story. And then getting back to what I was saying, I know some people who are very spiritual, gifted, psychics, light workers, really care about people, and even they shy away from the word anarchy or anarchism because of the colloquial sense of the meaning of the word. So there's still a lot of work to do on getting people to understand that anarchy simply means no rulers. No rulers, none being ruled, okay? We are all at birth free and sovereign. Our sovereignty is our birthright, okay? And we are sovereign and should be free from all assaults. But human beings have emotions. Sometimes stuff happens. So to what degree are you allowed to defend yourself? It's a decision. He made my guy made a decision. And, my students, I look at them as like, my little brothers, my little sisters, in many cases, like my kids. I really care about them. And it really goes both ways. They care about me too, because they've seen me get hurt a couple times. But with that being said, we really did need to keep doing an outreach, and I'm going to continue to do an outreach around in my area to get people to understand what anarchy really is and what it is not. And, even in a dictionary, they have anarchy is a political affiliation, a political theory. It's not political at all. There's nothing political about it. It means no rulers, none being ruled, no masters, no slaves. Really that simple. So I got to keep working on that stuff with a lot of people, and it's what we need to do to reach out to good people. And not automatically, be aggravated that they've bought into the psyop that I myself had once bought in to the point of actually serving the state, which brings me to a message that I want to give to my order followers and to everyone else. I didn't go from being an agent of the state and a good guy to this violent anarchist and a bad guy. Okay? I went from being a slave enforcer of an immoral system to being a spiritually awoken person who understands all human beings are sovereign and have natural law rights to not be ruled by anybody, and that there's different levels of slavery that have existed throughout all of humanity. So I didn't go from being a good guy to a bad guy. I really went from being a bad guy to a good guy. That's a hard pill for me to swallow even, although I've swallowed it already several times. When you are... Luckily, I never had to enforce immoral orders, but it's coming because they obfuscate orders. They obfuscate morals. When you are an agent of the state, doing the state's bidding, sometimes you'll do good. In creation, sometimes you'll do good. But in many cases, you're not. Especially when you're enforcing arbitrary dictates or laws that are victimless. They're more about money than they are about actually crime. And anybody in this line of work will tell you it's a reactionary sport. You get there after the fact. And self-defense is in your hands. It's your responsibility. And I talk about this not only in Rise from Darkness just a little bit when I discuss what toxic manipulators and narcissistic sociopathic psychos will do. And I've had to deal with all of them, working in and out of the prison, working as a cop. And you see these people with mental health problems now in the world that's COVID related, stress related, because of everything going on. They want to keep us vibing at this low level of energy, using our fear and shame and frivolous anger, and they feed off of it, man, like vampires. They really do. So we got to work not to. And we got to use some type of discernment and judgment. And remember, don't do unto others that which you wouldn't want done unto yourself. So in this case, she shouldn't have tried to assault him. Well, she actually did assault him. His ninja reflexes weren't good enough to keep himself from getting hit the first time, and even the second time. But he did the right thing by using enough force to restrain her instead of hurting her. She was a known threat. She was known, and she wasn't a threat. He was able to restrain her. Now, if I attacked him, he probably would have been justified in stabbing me or something. But that's different, So, again, you got to use your discernment when you're deciding when and how to use force. And we got to get that anarchy message out there, and we got to tell order followers, stop doing your job. You're not going to be going from being a bad, good guy, okay, to all of a sudden you're this evil, chaotic anarchist. You don't even have to call yourself an anarchist. If you live according to natural law and don't bring harm to others, and don't prop up an immoral system that does initiate and bring harm to others, you can call yourself whatever you want. You're a spiritually good person at that point. If you believe that all human beings have a right to be free, you're a de facto anarchist. Okay? Understand what anarchy really means. So with that being said, I wanted to put that out there. This has to keep going out into the collective. It can't be put out enough. I did a good interview this week. I was interviewed by Nathan Crabtree, who's had several different websites up. He seemed like a calm individual. I know he can have some anger issues sometimes. Everyone can. But he seemed like a very intelligent, calm individual. It was a nice conversation that we had. So I put a link to that. I'll put a link to that underneath here too. He's been around for a while, so it's just been nice talking to different people. We got to come together. I think we're all going to have to unite. We're going to have to come together, unite in real life, and maybe get a conference together sooner rather than later, get people together. We need unity. We need unity, and we need the same type of, I would say, camaraderie and focus that these bad guys have. Okay? and just keep plugging away at it, man. That's all I'm going to keep doing is plugging away at it. But I'm making real life preparations. I trained today. I'm going camping this weekend to do more training, but also get out in nature. I can't stress getting out in nature enough, man. Where I live is, I'm lucky, but you got to get out in nature. And I don't care if you go for a walk around the block, if there's just a small park up the street, get out and breathe, get some fresh air, be by trees, let the sun hit you. They're wanting to keep you vibing low. They're wanting to keep us all vibrating in a state of fear. And I honestly say, and this can be called this toxic masculine, fuck them. Fuck them. I'm not going to be living in fear. I might be scared at times, but I'm not going to live in fear. What I'm going to do is going to come from a space of love. Okay? Just like if somebody assaulted me that I knew wasn't a threat to me, from a space of love, I'd restrain them. But there also is a time when you may have to use more force than that. Okay? With that being said, this was TAC Chat number 34. I did put some tactics in there. I'd be interested to see what anyone thinks on my take on the nuances of what creation thinks about natural law as far as, it's really cut and dry. It's very simple. You have a right to assault somebody back. If you get assaulted, you have a right to hit them back. I just think in this case it was a little more nuanced. I don't think creation would have looked kindly upon him for beating the shit out of her because she hit him. So it's a little more nuanced than that, okay, in my opinion. I'd be interested to hear what other people think about that, or what they know about that, actually. With that being said, man, this is Dan coming at you with TAC Chat number 34. Until I come at you next week again, man, stay safe, keep training, keep prepping. Peace. Cancel and...